If you are not familiar with the name Adolph Bernard Marx, I cannot blame you, but you might want to stay a few minutes in this video because it's a personality. It can be important for the study of the music of Beethoven and other in the early 19th century at that period. So we will dive into this book a little bit today. That's the Anleitung zum Vortrag Beethovenische Klavierwerke, so the way of playing works of Beethoven, and addressing also a very nice thing about tempo-related research. That's for later in this video. First, to give you an impression who this Mr. Marx was, just a short overview of his life. Marx was born in 1795, he died in 1866, so basically is a kind of contemporary of people like Czerny. And he was born in Halle, interestingly, in the same village as Gottlob Turk was director of music of. So he was also, Marx, a fellow student of Karl Löwe. Remember, Gottlob Turk, 1789, published the treatise on keyboard playing, very famous book even today. In 1810, we've made a video on that, Karl Löwe entered his class as a singer, basically. So Marx was a fellow student of Karl Löwe in the same circles as Gottlob Turk, second generation Bach student, we can say. So that's very interesting to know where he started from. In 1821, he went to Berlin, was appointed by Martin Schlesinger, director of editor of music journal, the Berlin Algemeine Musikalische Zeitung, and he became very influential. His critics were appreciated, among other people, like by Beethoven, which is of course direct a relationship with the project we're doing this month. Although his pieces were a little bit offensive to the Berlin establishment, so young Marx was not afraid of doing that, writing like that. So he became acquainted very importantly, I think, with the family Mendelssohn, and certainly in his young years, Mendelssohn was greatly influenced by Marx. Marx made a revision of his overture A Midsummer Night's Dream, and even also important, after the famous performance of the St. Matthew Passion of J.S. Bach by Mendelssohn in 1829, it was Marx who persuaded Schlesinger to undertake the publication of that work. So they remained friends for several years. In 1830, even Mendelssohn recommended Marx in Berlin University. He became professor of music in Berlin University, and that he remained until his death. He published several books, one of which we're going to discuss in an interview with Lawrence Guardian. You know, we have a whole series of interviews every other Saturday with the guy who published Takt und Pendelschlag, so the whole theory about double and single beat metronome numbers. And Marx is really important because he is a contemporary of Czerny, as I said, lived in the same period and was one of those persons that started to react against faster and faster performances. So tempi didn't slow down in the 19th century, they went up in the 19th century. But again, let's focus here. So the Anleitung zum Vortrag Beethoven's Klavierwerke is interesting. It had a lot of prints. I think this is the 8th edition. And if you read such works in the 19th century, and this is important, you should be always aware of the context. Some people like Marx really were kind of old-fashioned in their approach of playing the music. They were commenting on fast performances, I've said before, but at the same time you will see that they were in love with new pianos. They will say, you will read here that obviously the piano of 1863 is better than the Beethoven piano. So it's up to you as you do research. You should place every person in the context of its time and try to fit and to connect it with other sources you have to create a three-dimensional context. So Marx is, at some levels, a very progressive instrument choice. He's aware of the old instruments though, which is kind of rare to talk about that. He talks about that much more in detail than, for instance, von Bülow will do later, or actually in the same time. But at the same time, there is a kind of conservative understanding of the performance of the music, which is really interesting. I would like to give you a very nice example that may or may not put you in thinking mode. He talks about the Opus 101, which is the A-Dur Sonata of Beethoven. I'm not even trying to play it on the clavichord, that's really piano music. So he writes of that last part. Für einen tüchtigen Spieler ist es nicht unerreichbar, den Satz etwa noch einmal so geschwind zu spielen, als sich gebührt. So he says for a good player, for a player who really can play piano, a professional, it is not out of reach to play this movement twice as fast as you should play it. So this is interesting. Opus 101, last movement, you can play it double as fast if you're an accomplished piano player. So let's check that out. So if we go to Czerny and Mosley's metronome numbers, we have 132, 138 for the quarter notes. So I've looked up some performances by Barenboim, by Gilels, and you will find a lot of others, but they are around 116 for the quarter note, which is a little bit below the 132. Let's take that from Czerny. Mosley is a little bit faster, but doesn't matter, just a nuance. So 116, all of those players easily can go to 132. This is a movement that you can play in the modern single beat understanding. There's no doubt about it. It's very fast though, but anyway. So then we go to, let's first have a listen to what it sounds like if Barenboim played. Just 5 seconds. Beautiful performance. I would do it differently, but that's another thing. That music can be beautiful in different ways. Let's agree on that. In order not to manipulate that performance, I've asked Kostas to give a digital rendition of the Opus 101 with Sibelius. 132 for a quarter note sounds like this, played by Mr. Sibelius. Okay, after this mind-blowing performance, we have two options. Either we read the metronome number 132 metrical, then we have 8 note 132, or we have it in single beat notation, then it's quarter note 32. And now we go to the quote again of Mr. Marx, who says, an accomplished pianist can easily double. Can double, he said not easily, could even think of doubling the right speed. Okay, there we go. If we have the 8 note 132 as the right speed, so the metrical understanding of the metronome number, then we go to 132 for the quarter note, which is doubling. That we have seen, it can be done by people like Barenboim. I could do it as well on my pianoforte. It's not easy, it is fast. Single beat solution, quarter note 132. As such, if we double that, Mr. Sibelius, who is the most accomplished player worldwide, plays it like this. For me, that's clear. I mean, sources like this, again, you take a perspective, you don't have to change your opinion, but just changing your perspective and just doing an exercise like this is showing that here the double beat solution must have been something that at least is considered by Marx before he wrote this little excerpt on the Opus 101. So again, there's something that's in support of that double beat theory. And again, also to close this video with, Marx will be served as an author who is actively commenting, very clear on the use of the metronome in a metrical sense. So it's not me telling you what to do, I'm just sharing my way of research here on my clavichord in my living room with you. Hope to inspire you and not again telling you what you should do. I hope to have you on my journey here. I've made a video on an assignment for you. If you've not seen that, might be interesting to check that out. to join me along of this journey. Anyway, hope you like this. There is a lot more to read by Marx. It's easily to find on the internet, so we live in a golden era for that. Go make use of that. It's all written in German, so that's something you have to deal with, but he can be of inspiration to you, the way you play Beethoven works. Again, remember, he is 19th century source. There may progress. It's sometimes conservative, sometimes progressive, so that's something you have to figure out. But read it, because those sources are sources very close to the persons we study. So thank you for watching. If this is your first time here on the channel, I'd love to have you subscribed. We are making music production from Bach to Beethoven, trying to connect that tradition with notation, which is important for me, way more than metronome numbers, but it's so fun to tie that research into the notation and to dive into scores. Thank you for watching, subscribing to the channel and sharing this video with your friends, and we see each other very soon again. Bye.